This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight now, we bring you a discussion on Cyclone Taukte Preparedness and Impact. The participants are Dr. Lakshman Singh Rathore, former Director General, Indian Meteorological Department, and Neelab Srivastav, journalist.
The extremely severe cyclonic storm Taukte, which derives its name from a Myanmarese gecko lizard, has now weakened into a depression, and as per reports that were received till this morning, it lay centered around or maybe over South Rajasthan and adjoining the Gujarat region. The cyclone hit the coast, or to say, made a landfall between Diu and Una town of Gir Somnath district of Gujarat on Monday night. It caused a major damage, as at least 13 lives are stated to have been lost in Gujarat, with a wide variety of destruction to property. The cyclone also triggered heavy rains in many parts of Saurashtra coast to the North Gujarat area, and also had its effect in multiple states, with some of the coastal states like Maharashtra, Goa, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, the Union Territory of Diu, Dadra and Nagar Haveli, and also its remnant effects are being seen in the northern part of the country, in the northern states. Right now at this moment, and this is a developing rescue operation wherein ONGC barge across the Mumbai shore, there is a rescue operation ongoing. At least 22 deaths of the workers there has been reported. Also, the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, today undertook an aerial survey of Gujarat and the UT of Diu and held a meeting with the senior officers. Mr. Rathore, you have long seen and studied these developments as a weatherman and as an IMD officer. What exactly goes into preparing, analyzing and predicting these cyclones?
Neelab, as far as preparedness for any cyclone is concerned, it has to be done at three levels. And that is level at the personal and family levels, community levels, and government and local bodies level. That is aspect number one. Aspect number two, we need to understand that at different stages of cyclones, for example, before the cyclone season, when a cyclone watch is issued, or when there is a warning issued for evacuation, etc., when the cyclone is striking, when post-cyclone, for different stages, the preparednesses are different. And the government need to prepare from the point of view of development of policies, guidelines, the response plan and mechanisms, the establishment of cyclone forecasting and warning mechanisms, ensuring necessary safety measures along the areas which are likely to be impacted by the cyclones, and then also review and strengthening the relief and distribution systems, stockpilings, then communication aspects and information dissemination mechanism, ensuring the last mile connectivity, resource mapping, particularly in terms of the shelters, the entire logistics, right from food, health, security, everything. And then also doing trainings, capacity building, awareness program, and medical preparedness. So this is whole gamut of activities which government will have to do. When it comes to the community or local bodies, they need to understand the vulnerability of the communities and also identify who are the most vulnerable, what are the risk levels, and also information dissemination mechanism according to the vulnerability and risk to the communities, and promote local level cyclone risk management planning. And that has to be done through participatory approach. So the community engagements and all sort of things. And again, here the role of the local communities and the communities in disseminating information and no rumors. But most importantly, it is the citizens themselves. They have to do a lot of things. And when I say that, for before cyclone, they need to constructing their house or any infrastructure, they should build those infrastructure as per the cyclone resistance standards, and check the wall of the semi-permanent or kacha things, or they should not keep the loose materials, and then the branches need to be pruned before the cyclones. This is very important. And when cyclone watch is issued, you need to re-ensure, and then you start tuning to the local radio television, because you at this point in time need to get correct warnings and early warning information and as to what are the impacts which cyclone is going to cause. And when evacuation is likely to happen, then you have to really help the government or evacuators When you are evacuating, you are supposed to wear strong shoes, good clothing, and carry with you all the necessary items like food, medicine, and whatever you need for your day-to-day survival.
What is remarkable about the science of analyzing and predicting cyclones, Mr. Rathore, is different stakeholders moving as soon as the IMT rings an alarm. But someone who's seen the domain so closely, as it is said in the aviation domain, that when the air hostess or the steward tells you that you first help yourself by wearing your own oxygen mask and then help others. So how does actually the IMD go about telling the different stakeholders as to what to do and when to respond?
Fortunately, the IMD science and modeling has really developed so much so that from the pre-cyclogenous stage, forecast related to the track, to intensity, point of landfall, time of landfall, and the impact cyclone is going to generate in terms of three main features like high wind speed, rainfall, and storm surge is very well predicted these days. And if you talk in terms of reference for this cyclone, particularly as you rightly mentioned, this is a very peculiar cyclone. It has really impacted almost 50% of the spatial domain of country, right from the southern Indian Ocean islands to the Jammu and Kashmir and also the Himalayan states and including Nepal. So along with the cyclone track intensity forecast, and after it hit across the coast, though weakens, but its potential to generate precipitation remains though. It has been very well predicted for all the states, and therefore the response mechanism, which is heavily dependent on the early warning mechanism, are able to gear up well in time. And there is a good coordination not only between IMD and NDRF or NDMA, but at state level and right up to district level. That is a wonderful system which has been put in place.
Talking about India has two large seaboards. This Cyclone Taukte is now on the western side, where you have states like Maharashtra and Gujarat, and on the eastern side, Bay of Bengal side. Is it correct, Mr. Rathore, to say that now we are seeing a lot of cyclones developing in the Arabian Sea, also something to do with the sea surface temperatures, and also coming at a time when it is peak summers? Is this something different that you are seeing over the years? Is something to do with global warming, something that is changing from the eastern coast to the western coast now?
Nilab, both the parts of Indian Ocean, that is Arabian Sea as well as Bengal, are known for cyclogenesis. There is nothing new about it. And there are two seasons. One is pre-monsoon and other is post-monsoon. So as far as season is concerned, also there is no novelty. Because of the global warming, the oceanic temperatures have also risen almost by a degree or so. And this warming seems to be more pronounced in the Arabian Sea, and the impact of that warming also seems to be more pronounced in the Arabian Sea. And we have noticed that although there is no significant rise in frequency and number of cyclones which are forming in the Bay of Bengal, but yes, Arabian Sea, the number and intensity both seems to be accentuating in the recent past, and therefore we see large number of cyclones which not only impact western coast of India but also countries like Pakistan, Oman, Yemen, and the entire Indian Ocean rim, particularly the northern part of the Arabian Sea.
While it is commendable, Mr. Rathore, that the science has developed so much and our agencies, including the IMD, the multiple response agencies that have developed the kind of precision to probably combat a cyclone and its after effects, which has led to the loss of lives going down. But if I can ask you, what better can be done so that zero casualty is ensured when vis-a-vis the cyclones are concerned, because we have our coastal states, crores of population living in these areas. The last word on cyclone science must not have been said as of now.
Despite of so much of accurate early warning and timely early warning, there are few deaths, and that is cause of concern. And if you analyze these deaths, I personally feel that most of these deaths are, number one, because of the flying debris. Number two, sometimes snake bites. Then number three, flooding. And number four, people who remain in high oceans. So therefore, the underlying message Government is doing very good, let me tell you. As far as organization of evacuation, moving people out of the zone likely to be impacted by surge or wind or flood, etc., they do evac. But still people don't heed to the advice of the early warning and also the administration. We need to really convince our people, and people should understand that these are life-threatening, and whatever loose objects which they keep in their house, around house, rooftops, on the road and their infrastructure, they have to be all cyclone resilient. And particularly those who are in low-lying areas, and the flooding again cause a lot of things, damages, they need to be more cautious.
Taking a cue from what you said, and because the most important thing that is at stake here is the human life, the people living in the coastal areas, the fishermen community. How better can we engage the community in these initiatives, Mr. Rathore, given the fact that the kind of communication facilities, if you talk about the cellular or television networks, or the kind of message that reaches these far-flung areas or the remote areas, how better can we engage as the community so that they are not only one of the stakeholders in this entire game, but also one of the most important and informed members of tackling a cyclone and ensuring that there is the minimal loss of life and even property for that matter?
There are three aspects. Aspect number one is creating better awareness. Number two is better information dissemination and communication mechanism. And number three, teaching the entire community about the impacts of different components, which, as I told earlier, what is the impact of high wind on different aspects, extreme precipitation, storm surge. And storm surge coupled with high tide, or if there is accentuary or if a river mouth, then the flooding area spreads. And so the inundation, the area inundated in the coastal zone increases, and particularly the coastal people are much more impacted. And fortunately, to my experience, fishermen, they seem to have a better understanding of these processes, and they do take good measures. But it is for the other people, particularly the peri-urban and urban society, who seems to be more literate, they really are lacking in responding to these kind of mechanisms.
Mr. Rathore, we have seen the kind of best practices that the states, if we're talking about India, that the kind of measures that some states have permanently deployed, like in Odisha. In Odisha, we have seen that there are permanent cyclone shelters that have come up because every now and then the state is battered by cyclones every year virtually. So what are the best practices that one can also implement in the going future? Maybe in India, that is some states are doing, or maybe globally across the globe, if there is something better that ensures life safety and property safety.
Dila, permanent shelter houses are a good idea, but they are more expensive to implement. And in the off-season, how to make use of those infrastructure also is the question, though they are being used. But the ideal way, in order to combat cyclone, we need to have permanent shelters, but other community or government infrastructure, be it schools or other community halls or things like that. And beside that, at community level also, at village level, they should identify the certain infrastructure which can be used in the event of such calamity situations. That would cut more ice and more economically feasible solution.
Mr. Rathore, the kind of multiple agencies, because you would also agree that it is not the job of one agency, be it central or the state. How does these agencies come on board so that a seamless interaction takes place? And as I said earlier, that once you flag an issue, once you flag that a cyclone is developing, how do different government departments or different stakeholders, and also even the volunteer groups, how do they gel across and ensure that a seamless connectivity happens and that you address the issue in a better fashion?
Basically, it is a three-tier mechanism you have to do at national level, at state level, and at district level. And at all three tiers, the responsibilities are very well defined. And there are standard operating procedures, and National Disaster Management Authorities have a good connect with the state disaster management authorities, and DRF also have a good connect with state disaster response force. And the equipment, there are certain costly equipment which need to be put as a central pool or a state pool, and they can be transported in emergency mode to the site where they are needed. And there is a good drill which is being done through this standard operating procedures as prescribed by NDMA, followed by SDMAs. And there is also good connect with the local bodies and the state government. So that really put a very integrated response mechanism in place, which really help us better responding to the severe cyclones.
Thank you so much for interacting with us, Mr. Rathore.
My pleasure. Jai Hind.
You were listening to a discussion on Cyclone Taukte, Preparedness and Impact. The participants were Dr. Lakshman Singh Rathore, former Director General, Indian Meteorological Department, and Nilab Srivastav, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app, News on AIR. This program is also available on our website, newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.